Welcome, brave soul, I am the forgotten storyteller. Before we begin, tap that like button if you dare, and drop a comment below telling me where in the world you're listening from. And if you make it to the end of this video, I hope to see you in the next story. I hope you're ready, because I am. Let's begin.
Dallas, Texas. August of '85. The summer heat baked the asphalt outside the newly minted Blockbuster video. Mr. Cook, a man with big ambitions and even bigger debt, surveyed his kingdom with a nervous smile. He envisioned families flocking here, arguments over which Disney classic to rent, Friday nights fueled by popcorn and adrenaline. He just hadn't factored in the lingering darkness clinging to the land beneath his feet. This plot, on the outskirts, had sat vacant for years. Locals whispered of unusual activity, hushed ceremonies held under the cloak of night. Cook, a pragmatist, dismissed them as superstitious claptrap. Until the renovations began. During foundation work, a gaping hole was discovered, a sealed-off section of the earth no one had known existed. Brickwork, crudely mortared, blocked a passage. Cook, eager to save money, ordered it filled. He didn't want to know what lay beyond. That was his first mistake. Almost immediately, a low hum, like a refrigerator struggling to breathe, resonated from the storeroom. Fluorescent lights flickered, casting long, distorted shadows. A young stock boy named Billy, a kid who loved horror movies a little too much, disappeared. Cook reported him as a runaway. The police shrugged. Another lost soul. But Cook knew. He felt the creeping unease, the constant feeling of being watched, the air thick with a subtle, almost palpable dread. He told himself it was stress, the pressure of running a new business. He buried the feeling deep, hoping it would stay there, like the secret behind the sealed wall. Bend, Oregon. The digital revolution had swept away empires, leaving this solitary Blockbuster standing like a lone sentinel against the tide. The familiar blue and yellow sign, faded by time, beckoned like a nostalgic siren call. Inside, the aroma of stale popcorn and the soft whir of the tape rewinders painted a picture of a bygone era. Jessie, a college student drowning in student loans, worked the night shift. She loved the place, the tangible history held within each plastic case. The 90s, a decade she only knew through second-hand stories and reruns, felt strangely comforting here. Mark, the manager, was a different story. Sarcastic, world-weary, a former gamer whose reflexes had dulled with age and apathy. He saw the Blockbuster not as a treasure, but as a ticking clock, counting down to the inevitable closure. Lena, the quiet, almost invisible co-worker, haunted the aisles. She was a fragile creature, her silence punctuated by sudden, startled movements. A past trauma, Mark vaguely remembered, had left her with shadows in her eyes. Alex, a tech vlogger with a growing fanbase, arrived camera in hand. He was documenting the last Blockbuster, hoping to capture its soul before it vanished forever. He envisioned a poignant piece, a tribute to simpler times. He had no idea how close he was to the truth. The old delivery truck groaned as it backed up to the loading dock. A new shipment of vintage tapes had arrived, a collector's dream unearthed from a dusty warehouse. Jessie, Mark, and Lena shuffled into the storeroom, eager to unpack the treasure trove. The storeroom, always colder than the rest of the building, felt particularly oppressive that night. The single flickering fluorescent bulb cast grotesque shadows on the towering shelves. The air crackled with static. Something watched. As they sorted through the tapes, a prickling sensation crawled across Jessie's skin. She dismissed it as the drafts inherent to the old building. But something was different. When they emerged from the storeroom, Alex noticed it first. A subtle shift in their demeanor. Their eyes seemed to lack focus, their movements slow and deliberate, like puppets with tangled strings. Their words, once casual and friendly, now sounded hollow, devoid of emotion. "Everything all right?" Alex asked, his camera trained on Jessie. She turned to him, a blank expression on her face. "Perfectly fine," she said, her voice flat and toneless. Back in his editing suite, reviewing the security footage, Alex noticed something chilling. In a single frame, a dark, amorphous shape hovered behind them in the storeroom, a flicker of darkness that shouldn't have been there. The next day, Lena cornered Alex near the horror section. Her eyes, usually downcast, were locked on his. They held a desperate plea, a flicker of the old Lena struggling to break through. "You shouldn't have come back here," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Then, her eyes glazed over, and she drifted away, lost in the oppressive silence. Alex, haunted by Lena's warning and the inexplicable figure in the security footage, began digging. He devoured local history books, scoured online forums, and even braved the dusty archives of the Bend Public Library. He discovered whispers, legends of occult practices in the area dating back centuries. The entity, he realized, was ancient, predating humanity itself. It was a creature of pure darkness, a parasite that fed not on blood or flesh, but on souls. Specifically, good souls. Kindness, empathy, compassion, these were its fuel, its sustenance. With each soul consumed, it grew stronger, its amorphous form solidifying, inching closer to its ultimate goal, shapeshifting, the ability to mimic human form perfectly. Once able to blend in, to wear the skin of the innocent, it planned to escape the confines of the Blockbuster, infiltrate society, and replace the good with itself. Family, friends, leaders, all consumed and replaced by the entity's malevolent duplicates. The storeroom, Alex learned, was more than just a cluttered space. It was a dimensional bleed, a pocket where the veil between worlds was thin. Souls didn't just die there, they were devoured, their essence feeding the insatiable hunger of the entity. Driven by a growing sense of dread, Alex searched the store for clues. He stumbled upon a set of dusty blueprints tucked away in Mark's office. They revealed a hidden section in the foundation, the sealed-off area from 1985. He unearthed a forgotten file on the Blockbuster franchise, detailing the mysterious disappearance of David Cook after building his third store. A single, handwritten note was stapled to the file, "Don't let it leave the walls." Cook had known. He had sensed the darkness, the creeping tendrils of the entity trying to break free. He had tried to warn someone, anyone. Alex knew what he had to do. He had to seal the entity back in the storeroom, back where it belonged. But how? He confronted Jesse and Mark, showing them the evidence, pleading with them to remember who they were. Mark dismissed him as a conspiracy theorist, his eyes vacant and cold. Jesse, however, showed a flicker of recognition, a momentary spark of her old self. "Help," she whispered, the words strained and broken. Jesse, part consumed but not entirely lost, devised a plan. She would use her connection to the entity to lure it back into the storeroom. She would be the bait, the sacrifice. As Alex watched, tears streaming down his face, Jesse walked into the storeroom, her movements deliberate, her eyes filled with a quiet resolve. She slammed the door shut and locked it from the inside. The building began to tremble. The fluorescent lights shattered. The air crackled with a deafening energy. Then, with a sickening crunch, the Blockbuster started to collapse inward, as if being swallowed by a black hole. The walls buckled, the roof caved in, and the entire structure imploded, leaving behind a gaping crater in the earth. Alex stumbled back, coughing in the dust, his heart shattered. Jesse was gone. He had failed. Then, he saw Mark standing at the edge of the parking lot, a faint smirk playing on his lips. "Jesse's gone," Mark said, his voice smooth and devoid of any emotion. "But I'm still here. Which means this is not the end."
Time for the next story. Guys, if you liked that last story, please don't forget to leave a like. Thank you.
The summer of '89 was a feeding frenzy for horror. Freddy Krueger was a cultural icon. Jason Voorhees stalked our nightmares, and the local Blockbuster was the portal to these terrifying realms. But nothing, not even the goriest slasher, could prepare us for its over now. It materialized out of thin air, a phantom VHS on the new release shelf. No previews, no posters, just a stark, black box with those 3 words in a chillingly simple font. Whispers followed it like a bad omen. People vanished, sanity frayed, all traced back to that cursed tape. They said the film wasn't just scary, it was alive, Watching you, waiting. The legends claimed it's over now housed an ancient spirit, bound to magnetic tape for millennia. At precisely 0:44 and 6 seconds, a dark ritual of amateur filmmaking unintentionally unsealed the entity. The spirit didn't leap from the screen, it seeped into your reality. The rules were simple, horrifyingly simple. Watch alone or in silence. Never rewind after the marked time. And above all, never acknowledge the shadow that appeared beside you. Our Blockbuster, a lonely outpost clinging to the edge of town, stood between a dead bowling alley and a graveyard, a perfect breeding ground for urban legends. Tina, our manager, was a horror fanatic, but even she looked uneasy when the only copy of It's Over Now in the city landed on her desk. Dale, the class clown, saw a chance for a prank. Lori, quiet and prone to nightmares, looked like she was about to faint. Sean, the resident tech geek, was fascinated by the film's complete lack of marketing. And Maria, the new hire, wore a constant aura of calm, thanks to the crystals dangling from her keychain. That Friday night, after the last customer shuffled out, the debate started. Should they watch it? Curiosity, fueled by teenage boredom and the allure of forbidden fruit, won. They crammed into the break room, the flickering fluorescent lights casting long shadows, the air thick with anticipation. Relax, guys, Dale said, popping popcorn. It's just a movie. Tina dimmed the lights. The VCR whirred, swallowing the tape. The movie began. It was grainy, low budget, amateurish. But unsettling. There was a pervasive sense of dread, a feeling of being watched. They joked at first, trying to break the tension, but the jokes died in their throats as the tape seemed to stutter. Then, it happened. The tape skipped, jumping ahead to 0:44 and 6 seconds. The screen filled with static, and a whisper, faint but distinct, slithered from the speakers. Each of them heard their name, a chilling caress in the dead air. Lori screamed. Sean fumbled for the remote. The TV screen began to pulse, a sickly, organic rhythm. Shadows flickered on the walls, mimicking their movements, then twisting into grotesque, independent shapes. Maria gripped her crystals, her eyes wide with terror. "We shouldn't have done this," she whispered. The room grew impossibly cold. The shadows lunged. Dale vanished first, swallowed by the static as he reached for the power button. Tina screamed his name, but her voice was cut short as a shadow wrapped around her, pulling her into the screen. Sean frantically rewound the tape, breaking the most sacred rule, and the static turned into a vortex, sucking him in with a strangled cry. Lori, paralyzed with fear, could only watch as Maria, her crystals glowing faintly, was dragged kicking and screaming into the abyss. The break room was silent. Only the TV screen, now displaying pure static, and the faint whir of the VCR, broke the stillness. The next morning, the police found the Blockbuster locked and deserted. They forced open the break room door at noon, when the sun was highest, as if reluctant to confront whatever darkness lingered within. The room was a chaotic mess. Chairs overturned, popcorn scattered across the floor. The VCR was still running, spewing out static. And inside, lay the It's Over Now tape, paused at 0:44 and 6 seconds. The weirdest detail? On the pause screen, barely visible through the snow of static, were 5 faint silhouettes. 5 figures trapped within the tape, screaming silently, forever. The Blockbuster was shut down, deemed unfit for human habitation. The building was slated for demolition, a final, desperate attempt to erase the horror. A year later, at a dusty garage sale on the outskirts of town, a young family stumbled across an unmarked VHS tape. The parents, nostalgic for the analog days, bought it for $1. That night, they popped the tape into their VCR. The screen flickered, and the family huddled together, excited to see what forgotten treasure they had unearthed. Then, a child's voice, innocent and terrifying, whispered from the speakers, "It's over now." The screen went black. The living room was silent. Then came the click. The VCR auto rewound the tape without prompting, the mechanical buzz of spinning reels cutting through the tension like a blade. The father, confused, moved toward the console. "Did we hit rewind?" he asked. His wife shook her head. The kid sat, wide-eyed, unmoving. The tape stopped at 0 o'clock. Then, on its own, it began playing again. But this time, the movie was different. Gone was the low-budget intro and static choked audio. Now, the screen showed a dingy break room, the very one from the Blockbuster store. The camera slowly panned across 5 chairs. In each one sat a person: Tina, Dale, Sean, Lori, and Maria, faces pale, eyes wide, mouths frozen mid-screen. They weren't acting. "Mom, I don't like this," the daughter whispered. The father lunged for the remote, but it wouldn't respond. The power button failed. Even unplugging the TV did nothing. The screen remained on, glowing brighter, the faces growing closer, clearer. Suddenly, the room on the screen went dark. Only the outline of the 5 remained, and something else, something behind them. A shape. A shadow with too many limbs. Its face was a blur of static, constantly shifting, like it couldn't decide what it wanted to be. Then came the whisper. This time it wasn't just one voice, it was 5. Different tones, layered in unison. All saying the same thing. "Help us." The family stared, frozen. "Let us out." The screen flickered. The shape moved forward. In the reflection on the glass, the family saw it standing behind them. They turned. There was nothing. But when they looked back at the TV, they were gone. A week later, the house sat quiet, lights off. A real estate sign leaned crooked on the lawn. Inside, the furniture remained untouched, the VCR still connected, the unmarked tape still inside. On the porch, a young man approached. A college student doing a podcast on lost media. He had followed the urban legend of It's Over Now from its origins in that Blockbuster store, tracing the chain of owners who'd mysteriously vanished. He pushed open the door, unlocked, strangely, and stepped inside, recorder in hand. "Day 3 of the Dead Format series," he whispered. "I'm inside the last known location where the tape surfaced." He reached the VCR, pressed eject. The tape slid out easily. He turned it over in his hands. No label. No markings. Only a faint black stain on the corner, like burned ink. He hesitated. Then, he pushed it back in and pressed play. Later that night, his followers waited for the podcast upload. None came. His apartment was found days later, empty. The mic still on, recording silence. The last entry was never posted, but those who hacked into the file server found the raw audio. 6 minutes of static. Then one last, garbled whisper. "We're not in the tape anymore." VHS collectors speak in hushed tones about a cursed movie, how it changes hands online, showing up in thrift stores, garage sales, or mysteriously appearing in mailed packages with no return address. A subreddit devoted to lost horror films has an entire megathread on It's Over Now. Those who claim to have seen it describe different versions, different victims. But all of them end the same way. At 0:44 and 6 seconds, the movie skips. A shadow appears. A whisper calls your name. And then you're never heard from again. In the static of forgotten signals, in the hiss of an old tape rewinding on its own, in the flicker of a CRT television in a dark basement, it waits. Watching. Waiting. Feeding. Because no matter how many times you eject the tape, no matter how many VCRs you smash or burn, somewhere out there, another player is spinning. And the voice returns, soft and final. It's over now.
Time for the next story. Guys, if you liked that last story, please don't forget to leave a like. Thank you.
The flickering lights of the Ashford Hills Blockbuster buzz like trapped wasps, a sound Eli had come to both dread and depend on. It was 2025, and the anachronism was captivating. the subject of his fading interest college paper. Mr. Wren, the store's custodian and clerk, was as much a relic as the tapes themselves. The man moved with the quiet glide of a ghost, his voice barely a whisper above the whirring of the ancient HVAC. Eli sifted through the new releases, a section ironically stocked with titles a decade past their prime. It was during one of these visits that he'd noticed the unreleased section, hidden behind a faded velvet rope held aloft by tarnished brass stanchions. Forbidden fruit. The disappearances. That was the unsettling part. Locals mentioned them in hushed tones, stories of people vanishing, often after being seen near the Blockbuster. They whispered about the final rental, a phantom tape no one could recall checking out, only that it always mysteriously reappeared on the shelf. Then he found it, a black VHS tape, its label simply reading play in stark white letters. Curiosity, the downfall of any good scholar, consumed him. He rented it, Mr. Wren offering no comment, his gaze fixed on some distant point beyond the aisles. The footage was raw, unnerving. Grainy, distorted security camera footage, but the faces. They were the missing. Staged in bizarre scenarios, a young girl blowing out candles on a cake, a man mowing a lawn, a group laughing around a campfire. But their eyes were filled with a silent, desperate plea. One by one, each person walked deeper into the video's frame, drawn by an unseen force, until they simply vanished. He didn't sleep that night. The next morning, Eli raced back to the Blockbuster, the play tape clutched in his sweaty palm. He slammed open the door, the bell clanging like a death knell. "Mr. Wren!" he shouted, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. Silence. The gentle hum of the fluorescent lights was the only reply. Mr. Wren was gone. Behind the counter, a door led to a back room Eli had never seen open to the public. He hesitated, then pushed it open. The air inside was thick with the smell of dust and ozone. Dominating the room was a massive, antique reel-to-reel film projector, whirring and clicking, its bulb blazing, projecting a distorted image onto the far wall. But there were no wires, no visible power source. It just was. Surrounding the projector were shelves upon shelves of unlabeled tapes. He ran his fingers along the spines, then noticed something chilling. Each reel casing was etched with a name. The names of the missing people. Suddenly, a cold, viscous black fog began to emanate from the projector, spreading across the floor like oil. The tapes on the shelves rattled, the shelves themselves began to vibrate. An oppressive weight pushed down on him, a suffocating feeling of dread. He understood, with chilling clarity, what he was facing. This wasn't just a blockbuster. It was a trap. An ancient cinematic entity, feeding on souls, imprisoning them in its own twisted, eternal movie. It lured them in with the comforting familiarity of nostalgia, then scripted their doom. He lunged for the projector, desperate to stop it, to break the cycle. But as his hand reached out, the room dissolved around him. He was no longer in the back room of the Blockbuster. He was inside a film reel. A bedroom bathed in the harsh, flickering light of strobe lighting. A birthday party with mannequins for guests. A war zone frozen in a perpetual moment of explosion. He stumbled through these surreal movie sets, each more bizarre and terrifying than the last. Then he saw them. The missing people. Stuck in loops, reliving fragmented scenes, forced to act out meaningless roles. They were alive, in a sense, but hollow, vacant, their eyes reflecting only the perpetual terror of their captivity. A voice, deep and resonant, boomed from nowhere. "You're all part of the cast now." A screen flickered into existence, displaying the same distorted image the projector had been showing. The entity. He tried to fight, to break free, but he was trapped, a puppet in the entity's grand, macabre production. Weeks later, the Ashford Hills Blockbuster mysteriously closed. No one saw it happen. One day it was there, a flickering beacon of bygone days, the next, it was gone. Then, a strange phenomenon began. A movie trailer went viral online. Titled Ashford Hills, The Lost Tapes, it was billed as a found footage horror film. The footage was unsettling, disorienting, and eerily familiar. Viewers, with a growing sense of unease, began to recognize faces in the cast. Faces that had been plastered on missing person posters years ago. They attributed it to clever casting, to the director's attention to detail. The film had no credits, no known production company. It simply appeared. True crime podcasters and YouTubers obsessed over it, dissecting every frame, searching for clues, for answers. But no answers ever came. The film remained a chilling enigma, a viral sensation shrouded in mystery. The Blockbuster storefront was boarded up, the peeling paint a testament to its abandonment. A new red box kiosk appeared directly in front of it, its bright lights a stark contrast to the darkness within. The selection was standard, the typical Hollywood fare. But as a lone customer approached the kiosk, their eyes were drawn to a new release. New release, your story. The title card shimmered. Then, it displayed the customer's reflection, their eyes widening in dread as they realized they were already part of the cast. The perpetual movie was always seeking new players. The final rental was always waiting.
Ready for spine-chilling tales that will haunt your thoughts. Subscribe to Forgotten Storyteller for eerie narrations, unsettling mysteries, and haunting stories you won't forget. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a story, because some stories refuse to stay buried. Join us, if you dare.